and welcome back to Actually Sustainable, the podcast for high achieving women, especially those with ADHD or other kind of neurospiciness, who are either recovering or facing burnout and would like to build and sustain or maintain an actually sustainable life. Okay? Little message first, disclaimer, this is for educational and entertainment purposes only. This is not a substitute for actual personalized medical care. This is not medical advice. This is not to replace a therapist, a coach, anybody, again, any trained professional doing individual care with you. This is more for, like I said, educational purposes. All right, episode 10. What actually is burnout? Because it's not a personal failure. Today we've been talking about burnout, and a lot of people talk about burnout. It's a word that's kind of bantered about a lot in society nowadays. And so I figured I should actually define it for you. According to the World Health Organization, the definition is a syndrome conceptualized as resulting from chronic workplace stress that has not been successfully managed. Okay, that's the official World Health Organization definition of burnout. So by definition, burnout is a workplace issue. Okay, it is the stress has not been managed well by the job itself, the employer, the situation, maybe you, but maybe not, right? It's not your fault, and it's not a personal failure that it happened. There are aspects to life as well that also cause problems and increase your risk of burnout, but that doesn't mean that it is a causative agent. It's still not your fault, right? So if you're burning out with work, that's a work issue. Overwhelm, depression, grief, those are all emotions that you might be feeling as well. Secondary PTSD, especially those in medical fields or caring fields. You can have some of that secondary PTSD. You can have moral injury. You can have a lot of things that end up needing therapy to really kind of work through and get past. And they can have similar presentations as burnout. Like I said, grief can too. That, I'm convinced that there's a version of like a secondary grief that can happen as well, especially in medical world, especially in the acute care. They've studied a lot of that in chronic care areas like surgeons and family practice and cancer people. They followed that grief aspect from those, not so much from the acute care, like the emergency room side. And I do believe that there's a significant component to it that we don't have addressed yet. Those are not burnout specifically. They are not fun. They are not good. They are something that usually, again, needs time, effort, and healing. And often that requires some kind of counseling, therapy stuff to try to help get yourself through. But it's not officially burnout. And so one of the things that a lot of people say, especially those of us who are high achieving, we want to be able to do that. We're capable, we're competent. We can do all of these things. And, we do more before breakfast than a lot of people do, in an entire day. So we feel like we should. So we start getting these internal narratives, though, that we should be able to do this. We should be able to maintain. We should be able to be present for all the people in our life that need us to be completely present and get all of our charts done and be able to, be the highest level clinician that we can be. And we should be on these committees to be part of it. And we should be able to, the ands, should, and, they build up and they become this internal narrative story that we tell ourselves of who we should be. But it's unrealistic because the workplace isn't set up for us most of the time, especially people with ADHD. Like, our workplaces are not set up for us, and we often struggle a lot more to do those same simple tasks as a lot of other people, neurotypical people, can just do. And that struggle feels bigger than what we don't realize how much harder it is, because it's just our normal. It's just our day to day. And the neurotypicals are like, we'll just do it because it's so easy for them. They don't realize how much of a struggle it is for the ADHD people. And so we end up kind of constantly saying that we're just an idiot. We're just, and putting ourselves down and doing that shame spiral and doing that, all of these things. What I want us to do today is really kind of look at that and go, no, that's not my fault. That's not my failing. I shouldn't be able to maintain long-term an unsustainable system. Somebody built this system and it's not sustainable to continue working. I just saw a statistic. I'll try to find the article and put it in, but I was that more than 50% of a clinician's time is spent on their EHR and their electronic health record, whether reviewing or charting or doing whatever. That's over 50%, and not all of that is done during our actual clinical time. So we're going to work. We're trying to be good clinicians. We're trying to be, whatever your job is. The system is set up to have us do extra work at home. That is not our fault. And if we set good boundaries to against that, and we kind of do stopgaps, whatever, but that doesn't eliminate that. That's part of it. And sometimes life happens, right? That if you're taking care of your aging parent, and you're taking care of your teenagers, and you're taking care of your job, and you're taking care of, pets or whatever, and you're trying to do a side hustle because your main gig isn't paying enough and you want to get out of your main gig, you're not going to be able to make the brownies from scratch for your kids, bake sale. That's okay. That should not be I should be able to do this. No, that is just making you feel worse for no good reason. You don't even have to go to the bake sale if you don't have the capacity to do it. Okay? Please recognize what is within your realm. I talked about guilt last week. Realize what you should feel guilty for. Realize what you should be able to do. And kind of one of the good tips to try to do is, if you had a friend tell you they're doing all of the things and they feel like they should be able to do this, what would you respond to them? Would you tell them, yeah, you should be able to do that and more, and do a backflip while you're doing it, right? Probably not. So if you wouldn't tell a friend to do all of those things and feel guilty if they don't tell yourself that. Give yourself the same treatment and the same compassion that you would give a friend. Because you are important. Your needs matter just as much as everybody else's. Doesn't always feel that way. Culture tells us not to feel that way. Culture tells us it's selfish to feel that way. But that is the truth. Your needs matter too. Okay? And the systems that are set up are not for our benefit. They are part of the problem. They are the problem most of the time that contribute and lead to a lot of our burnout. It is not a personal failing of ours. And we should not necessarily be able to manage all of that way. So what I'd like you to do this week, this is kind of a shorter episode. What I'd like you guys to do this week is kind of look in and see what some of those internal stories are. Where are your shoulds? And test it. Say out loud what you're telling yourself. You should be able to do this. You need to get XYZ done, right? You should be able to get up and get to work on time and do all of this stuff. If you were to tell a friend or a colleague that exact sentence in the exact same way that you would that you are telling yourself, then maybe it's okay. But my money's going to be, I'm not a betting person, but my money will be on, no, you would never say that to somebody else. You would never say it that way to somebody else. Most likely, right? And so if you wouldn't say it, that terminology, that word, that sentence, or in that tone of voice, or with that kind of condemnation and judgment, then don't say it to yourself that way either. Try to look at it from a more distanced perspective. Try to look at it from the fact that it's the job's fault if you're burning out from your job. I can't fix your job. That's somebody else's role. That's a lot of people are working on it. I know in emergency medicine, that was a constant thing. Like, we're constantly renovating and refixing and doing the things. And I mean, there's, chief wellness officer conventions where they try to look into this and how they can adjust. And they've come up with a lot of that AI kind of stuff now that we can use that helps write our charts for us, which is amazing. And it really does speed things up. So there are ways that the job is trying to work on it, but realize what is the job's fault and not yours. Realize that you're human, that your needs matter, and then rewrite some of those stories in your head that you tell yourself, whether you're aware of them or not. Try to, one, be aware of them. Listen, hear what you actually say. Test it against if you tell a colleague, and then if you wouldn't, write it a different way. Now, what I would like you to do this week is all of that stuff, and then share me with them if you're willing. Put it in the comments, some of the phrases that you've used. I'm usually kind of a stop being lazy, get off your butt, right? But I'm not being lazy. I covered that in the first episode. But that's one of the ones that I've gone through. I have a bunch of others from the past, but share with me what some of those phrases are and how you counter them, how you've gotten past them. Like one of the other ones was, I used to feel really guilty about not managing the schedule for absolutely all these people. And then I'm like, you know what? They're all adults too. They can handle it too. Like, I am not the only adult in the room. They can be their own adults. I am not their parent. And even my older kids now, I tell them all the time, I am your mom, but I am not your calendar. I am not your secretary. You guys have to manage this yourselves too, because you need to. And one day you will need to entirely by yourself. I will be a backup for now, but that's it, kind of thing. But that took me a while to kind of really internalize that, because I really felt like it was my role. It was my job. And I felt guilty if, they missed something but I told them, I put the responsibility on them. And I said, it's up to you, man. Like, you have to keep track of it and all of that. And if they didn't, then they missed it. And, I tried again. For my kids, I tried as backup, kind of reminding periodically as needed, etc. But for a lot of the other adults, no, I don't remind very much anymore because they're adults. So at least in certain settings. Anyway, that's kind of one of mine. Share with me some of yours in the comments, and share with some of your friends. Share this episode with some of your friends if it helped you at all and you think it would help them. Please do that. Give me a review, like, follow, subscribe, whatever you need to do if you want to catch all of our episodes going forward. All right, my dears, until next week, keep doing the best you can, because I'm sure you already are, whether you feel like it or not. All right? Until then.